The old trading station called Frontier's Edge floated quietly in the darkness between star systems. It was not a pretty place. The metal walls were rusty and patched with welding marks. The air recyclers made strange noises, and the lights flickered sometimes. But for the people who lived there, it was home. James Harper crawled under a broken cargo hauler in the maintenance bay. Oil dripped on his face as he tried to fix another busted engine part. His tools were old and some were held together with tape, but James made them work. He always found a way to make things work. At 30 years old, James had lived on the station for 5 years. His brown hair was getting thin on top, and his hands were always dirty from fixing machines. His jumpsuit had been blue once, but now it was more gray than anything else. The patches on his knees and elbows showed how hard he worked every day. This hyperdrive coupling is completely shot, he said to himself, holding up a piece of metal that looked like it had been chewed by something with very sharp teeth. But maybe I can make something from the spare parts in bin 7. James did not have much money. Most days he ate protein paste from tubes and drank recycled water that tasted like metal. But he never complained. There were always ships to fix, and ship captains paid him just enough to keep going. The maintenance bay was his little kingdom. It smelled like oil and hot metal and the cleaning fluid he used to scrub engine parts. 3 workbenches held his tools, and the walls were covered with spare parts hanging from hooks and nails. Everything had its place, and James knew where to find what he needed even in the dark. Outside his bay, the station buzzed with activity. Merchants sold things from 100 different worlds. Smugglers whispered about secret cargo runs. Families who had lost their home planets tried to start new lives. The station took in everyone, no questions asked. James wiped his hands on a rag and was reaching for his lunch when every alarm on the station started screaming at once. The sound bounced off the metal walls and made his ears hurt. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors. All station personnel, emergency stations, came the voice of Station Administrator William Cross over the speakers. His voice shook with fear. Unknown vessel approaching. Massive biosignature detected. James dropped his tools and ran to the nearest window. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. A ship was coming toward them, but it was not like any ship he had ever seen. It looked alive. The hull curved and moved like skin, and lights pulsed along its sides like a heartbeat. It was huge, bigger than 3 station modules put together. People ran through the corridors. Some grabbed weapons. Others tried to hide. Children cried. The fear was thick in the air like smoke. The bioship docked with the station with a sound like thunder. The docking clamps, designed for metal ships, barely managed to hold onto the living vessel. Steam hissed from the connection points. Then she emerged. The Dragon Queen was 12 feet tall and covered in golden scales that caught the harsh station lights and threw them back like tiny suns. Her head was elegant and terrible, with bright yellow eyes that seemed to see everything at once. When she moved, her scales rustled like wind through leaves. Her tail, as thick as James's waist, swept behind her with controlled power. But it was not her size or her golden beauty that made James's heart hurt. It was the way she carried herself. Her great shoulders were bent with exhaustion. Her magnificent head hung low with worry. This was not the proud conqueror that stories told about. This was a mother in terrible pain. Behind her came 3 small creatures that made soft, weak sounds. They were no bigger than house cats, covered in scales that should have been bright and colorful but looked gray and dull. Their little wings dragged on the floor. Their eyes, which should have been alert and curious, were half closed with sickness. The Dragon Queen's babies. A crowd gathered quickly, but they kept their distance. Everyone knew about the Dragon Empire. Their fleets had conquered star systems. Their warriors were legendary. But here was their queen, and she looked more tired than terrifying. "I seek aid for my children," she said, and her voice was like distant thunder rolling across mountains. "They grow weaker each day. I will pay any price, give any treasure, to save them." Station Administrator William Cross stepped forward, a thin man who always tried to solve problems with paperwork and regulations. "Your Majesty, we are honored by your presence, but our medical facilities are quite limited. Perhaps one of the core worlds would be better equipped to help." The Dragon Queen's eyes flashed with anger and desperation. "Do you think I have not tried?" she roared. "The finest doctors in the galaxy have examined them. The greatest healers have failed. I come here because I have nowhere else to go." One of the tiny dragonlings made a sound like a kitten crying and collapsed. The queen rushed to scoop up her baby with hands that could crush steel but touched her child with infinite gentleness. James watched from the edge of the crowd, and something inside him broke. He had lost people he loved too. He knew what it felt like to be desperate and alone. Without thinking, he stepped forward, even though everyone else stepped back. The Dragon Queen's terrible gaze fell on him, and James felt like he was standing in front of the sun. Station Administrator William Cross called for help right away. Within an hour, every expert on Frontiers Edge had gathered in the main docking bay. The Dragon Queen sat on the floor with her 3 sick babies curled against her warm scales, watching with desperate hope as each specialist approached. Dr. Emma Richardson came first. She was the station's best doctor, a woman with gray hair and kind eyes who had saved many lives over the years. She carried her medical scanner and moved slowly so she would not frighten the little dragonlings. The Queen allowed her to examine the babies, but the scanner showed nothing wrong. Their vital signs are weak but stable, Dr. Richardson said, frowning at her readings. I can find no disease, no infection, no physical injury. It is as if they are simply fading away. Professor Alan Davies arrived on the next transport. He was famous across the galaxy for knowing about alien nutrition. His laboratory ship carried food samples from 1,000 worlds. He brought delicacies that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. The professor prepared a feast of rare minerals that young dragons were supposed to crave. He mixed energy-rich crystals that glowed with their own light. He offered protein sources from the core worlds that were said to make dragons grow strong and proud. The 3 baby dragons looked at the expensive food and turned their heads away. They would not even taste it. Their mother tried to encourage them, making gentle rumbling sounds, but they had no interest at all. This is impossible, Professor Davies muttered. These foods are scientifically perfect for their species. The nutritional content is exactly what they need. More experts came. Xenobiologists who studied alien life forms. Biochemists with advanced equipment. Even a dragon healer from a trading ship 2 systems away, summoned by emergency subspace message. Each one tried something different. Each one failed. The baby dragons grew weaker. Their tiny scales lost more color. Their breathing became slower. The Dragon Queen's golden scales began to darken with grief and rage. James watched all of this from his maintenance bay. He could not concentrate on his work. Every time he heard the Queen's anguished roar echo through the station corridors, his heart hurt. He kept thinking about the way she had touched her babies, so gentle despite her enormous strength. On the second day, James decided he could not just watch anymore. It was his lunch break, and he had prepared his usual meal. Protein paste from a tube, mixed with hydroponic vegetables from the station's small garden. A few synthetic herbs for flavor. Nothing special, nothing expensive. Just simple food that filled his belly and kept him working. He walked toward the docking bay where the Dragon Queen waited. People stepped out of his way, shaking their heads. They thought he was crazy to approach the grieving mother. Dragons were dangerous when they were upset, and this queen had already crushed a maintenance robot that made too much noise near her children. Your Majesty, James said quietly when he reached the edge of the space where she sat today. His voice was barely above a whisper, but her sharp ears heard every word. The Dragon Queen turned her great head toward him. Her yellow eyes were filled with pain and fury. When she spoke, her voice was like grinding stone. Another expert? Another failure? I grow tired of false hope, human. Gnome, James said, holding up his simple bowl. I'm just a mechanic. But I was thinking, maybe the little ones are just hungry for something different. Something simple. The Queen's eyes flashed dangerously. Dozens of specialists have failed, and you think your peasant scraps will succeed where they could not. James did not back away, even though his hands were shaking. Sometimes when creatures are really sick, they need comfort food. Food that tastes like home and safety. Before the Queen could respond, the smallest dragonling lifted its head. Its tiny nostrils flared, catching the scent of James's meal. The baby made a soft chirping sound, the first happy noise it had made in days. It crawled weakly toward the bowl, leaving its mother's warm side for the first time since arriving at the station. The Queen watched in amazement as her smallest child stuck its little snout into James's bowl and began eating eagerly. The other 2 babies smelled the food and crawled over too, pushing against each other to get to the simple meal. Within minutes, all 3 dragonlings had cleaned the bowl completely. Their scales began to brighten. Their eyes became more alert. They chirped and played with each other, showing more energy than they had displayed since their arrival. The Dragon Queen stared at James with complete confusion. I do not understand. They refused foods worth fortunes. Delicacies that should have made them strong. Yet they devour your simple fare as if they have been starving. James smiled and sat down cross-legged on the floor, making himself smaller and less threatening. My grandmother used to say that food made with love tastes different. Maybe these little ones can sense that. Love? The queen repeated the word as if she had never heard it before. Yes, I lost my family a few years back. Learned that when you care about who you're cooking for, it changes the food somehow. Makes it more than just nutrients and calories. The smallest dragonling crawled into James's lap and curled up like a contented cat. Its scales were definitely brighter now, showing hints of the beautiful colors they should have. The other two settled against his legs, making happy little rumbling sounds. The Dragon Queen watched her children with wonder she had not felt in months. For the first time since her mate had died, she began to hope that her babies might survive. For the next 5 days, James brought his simple meals to the Dragon Queen's children 3 times each day. Every time he appeared with his plain bowl of food, the 3 little dragonlings would chirp with excitement and rush to him on their tiny legs. Their scales grew brighter each day. Their eyes became clear and alert. They played and tumbled over each other like happy puppies. The Dragon Queen watched everything James did. At first she kept her distance, sitting 20 feet away with her great arms crossed and her golden eyes suspicious. But slowly, as her children grew stronger and happier, she began to move closer during feeding time. On the 6th day, she finally spoke to James while he prepared their meal. "Tell me about this love you mentioned," she said, her deep voice softer than before. "What does it mean?" James stirred his pot of simple stew, made from station rations and hydroponic vegetables. "It means caring about someone more than you care about yourself. It means wanting them to be happy and safe, even if it costs you something." "I love my children," the queen said, but she sounded confused. "Yet my love did not feed them." "Different kinds of love, maybe," James said gently. "You love them like a queen loves her heirs. I love them like like a friend loves friends. No rules, no expectations. Just wanting them to feel good." The smallest dragonling, who James had started calling Pip because of the peeping sounds it made, climbed onto his shoulder while he cooked. The other 2, Spark and Shine, wrapped themselves around his ankles like scaly cats. They trusted him completely now. The Dragon Queen's expression grew sad as she watched her children with the human. "They have never been so comfortable with anyone except their father," she whispered. "Even with me, they are respectful and careful. With you, they are simply happy." That evening, after the dragonlings had eaten and fallen asleep in a pile next to James's workbench, the queen finally told him her story. "My name is Velandra," she began, settling her massive form on the floor of the maintenance bay. "I was born to rule the Eastern Spiral, as my mothers did before me. For 300 years, I lived in crystal palaces and commanded fleets of warships." James continued cleaning his tools while she talked, not wanting to make her uncomfortable by staring. "Dragons do not love as other species do," Velandra continued. "We respect strength. We admire power. We form alliances based on mutual benefit. But love, that was something I learned only when I met Krexthor." Her voice grew soft when she spoke her mate's name. He was different from other dragon males. He cared more about growing things than conquering them. He taught me to see beauty in small moments instead of only in great victories. When our eggs were ready to hatch, he sang to them every day. James looked up from his work. "What happened to him?" Valandra's scales darkened with grief. "My cousin Zarkhan wanted my territory. He challenged Krexthor to ritual combat while I was attending a council meeting 3 systems away. The fight was supposed to be honorable, but Zarkhan brought poison weapons." She was quiet for a long moment. "By the time I returned, my mate was dead and my cousin had claimed the right to rule. I barely escaped with my unhatched children. We have been fleeing ever since." "That's why you came to a place like this," James said, understanding. "Somewhere they wouldn't think to look." "Yes. But the stress of constant travel, the artificial foods available on trading ships, something changed my children. They stopped responding to normal dragon nutrition. Every expert I consulted said the same thing. There was nothing physically wrong, but they were wasting away." James set down his tools and looked at the sleeping dragonlings. They weren't just hungry for food. They were hungry for what food used to mean when their father was alive. Valandra nodded slowly. "In our palace, meals were ceremonies. Formal events with precise protocols. But when Krexthor fed them, it was different. He would hum little songs and tell them stories about the food, where it came from, why it would make them grow strong and wise. He cooked with love," James said simply. "I try to do the same, but I am not. I was never taught how to be gentle. I know how to command respect, how to inspire fear, how to win battles. But I do not know how to simply care for someone without thinking about politics or power or proper procedure. The smallest dragonling, Pip, woke up and made a soft questioning sound. James reached over and gently scratched behind its tiny head fins. Pip purred like a motor and went back to sleep. You do it so naturally, Valandra said, watching. As if caring were as easy as breathing. Maybe it is, for humans, James said. We're not very strong or smart compared to most species. But we're good at making connections. At seeing other people as family instead of competitors. Just then, the station's communication system crackled to life. Captain Robert Stone's urgent voice filled the maintenance bay. All hands, emergency alert. Long-range sensors have detected multiple Dragon Fleet signatures approaching our position. Estimate arrival in 18 hours. Configuration suggests hostile intent. Valandra's head snapped up, her eyes wide with terror. They found us, she whispered. Zarkan's forces. They will destroy this entire station to eliminate me and claim my children as trophies. James looked down at the 3 sleeping babies, then up at their mother's frightened face. Something hard and determined settled in his chest. No, he said quietly. They won't. James stood up slowly, his jaw set with determination. The 3 baby dragonlings stirred in their sleep, sensing the tension in the air. Valandra looked at him with confusion and growing fear. You do not understand, human, she said, her voice shaking. These are not merchant ships or pirates. Zarkan commands 12 battle cruisers. Each one can destroy a moon. This station will be nothing but debris in space. Maybe, James said, walking to his tool cabinet. But that doesn't mean we give up without a fight. He pulled out his personal communicator and switched it to the station-wide channel. This is James Harper in Maintenance Bay 7. I need all department heads to meet here in 10 minutes. We have a problem to solve. Valandra stared at him. You cannot be serious. You would risk your lives for us? We are strangers. We are not even the same species. James knelt down and gently stroked Pip's tiny head. The smallest dragonling opened one sleepy eye and made a contented chirping sound. These little ones aren't strangers anymore. They are family. And we protect our family. Within minutes, people began arriving at the maintenance bay. Captain Robert Stone came first, a tall man with graying hair who had served on military ships before retiring to the quiet life of a trading station. Dr. Emma Richardson followed, still carrying her medical scanner. Engineer Lisa Walsh arrived with grease-stained coveralls and a portable computer. Security Chief Tom Bradley brought his entire team of 6 guards. Soon the bay was crowded with station residents. Bartender Henry Mitchell stood next to teacher Sarah Clark. Merchant families with their children huddled together. Even old Granny Peterson, who ran the hydroponic gardens, shuffled in with her walking stick. Folks, James said when everyone had gathered. You all heard the announcement. Dragon warships are coming, and they mean to destroy us. Now, we could try to evacuate, but most of our ships are too slow and too old. We wouldn't get far before they caught us. So what are you suggesting? Captain Stone asked. James looked around at all the faces watching him. These were good people. Hard-working people who had made Frontiers Edge their home because they had nowhere else to go. I'm suggesting we stay and fight. Several people started talking at once. Some voices sounded frightened. Others sounded angry. But James held up his hand for quiet. I know it sounds crazy, he continued. But think about what we have here. Lisa, you know every system on this station better than anyone. Tom, your security team knows every corridor and access tunnel. Henry, you've got contacts with smugglers who might help us. And all of you have skills that could make a difference. Engineer Lisa Walsh stepped forward, her computer already running calculations. The station's mining lasers could be modified for defense. They're designed to cut through asteroids, so they have decent power. But it would take time to reposition them and upgrade the targeting systems. How much time? James asked. 8 hours, maybe 10 if we work around the clock, Lisa said. But James, even with weapon modifications, we're still talking about a trading station against military warships. Dr. Richardson spoke up. What about the medical bay? We could set up trauma stations, prepare for casualties. Good thinking, James said. Granny Peterson, how fast can you increase food production? We might be under siege for a while. The old woman tapped her walking stick on the floor. Give me willing hands and I can triple our output in 2 days. These old gardens have surprises left in them. Valandra watched all of this with growing amazement. You would truly do this? Risk everything for my children and me? Captain Stone answered before James could speak. Your Majesty, most of us came to this station because we had nowhere else to go. People who don't fit in with the big civilizations. Outcasts, refugees, folks who just want to live peaceful lives. We understand what it means to need help. Besides, added bartender Henry Mitchell with a grin, those little dragons of yours have become the station mascots. Half the kids on board come by every day just to watch them play. You try to hurt our mascots, you've got a fight on your hands. Pip chose that moment to wake up and chirp loudly, as if agreeing. Spark and Shine opened their eyes too, looking around at all the humans with curious interest. The sight of the 3 baby dragons seemed to strengthen everyone's resolve. James felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the warmth of being part of a real community. All right then. Lisa, start on those laser modifications. Tom, I need you to map out defensive positions throughout the station. Dr. Richardson, set up your medical stations. Everyone else, we're going to turn this trading post into a fortress. What can I do? Valandra asked, her voice filled with emotion. You can help us understand dragon military tactics, James said. And when the time comes, you can show your cousin what happens when someone threatens your family. For the next 16 hours, Frontier's Edge became a hive of activity. Lisa Walsh and her engineering team crawled through access tunnels, rerouting power cables and installing new targeting computers. Security Chief Bradley positioned his guards at key choke points and taught civilian volunteers how to use emergency weapons. The station's children, led by teacher Sarah Clark, were moved to the safest interior sections. But even they wanted to help, so they were given jobs carrying messages and supplies. James worked alongside everyone, his mechanical skills proving useful in dozens of small ways. But every few hours, he would return to check on the baby dragons and make sure they had food. Each time he did, more people gathered around to pet the little creatures and promised they would keep them safe. When the enemy fleet finally appeared on the long-range scanners, Frontier's Edge was as ready as it could be. The dragon warships appeared on the scanner screens like deadly stars against the black of space. 12 massive vessels, each one gleaming with biometal armor and bristling with weapon ports that could turn planets into dust. They moved in perfect formation, getting closer to the small trading station with each passing minute. James stood in the station's command center, watching the approaching fleet alongside Captain Stone and the other defenders. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. Around him, people checked their weapons and said quiet prayers. The 3 baby dragons sat near his feet, sensing the tension but staying close to the human who had become their protector. Incoming transmission, announced Communications Officer Beth Morgan, her voice tight with fear. It's from the lead dragon ship. Put it through, Captain Stone said. The main screen flickered, and a dragon face appeared. This dragon was larger than Valandra, with dark red scales and cruel yellow eyes. Scars crossed his snout and neck, telling stories of many battles. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding metal. I am War Prince Zarkhan of the Eastern Spiral Fleet. You harbor a traitor and her stolen offspring. Surrender Valandra and her spawn immediately, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and I will make this station burn for days. Captain Stone stepped forward, his military bearing showing despite his civilian clothes. This is Captain Robert Stone, commanding officer of Frontier's Edge. We don't surrender to bullies. If you want a fight, you'll get one. Zarkhan's scarred face twisted into an ugly smile. Brave words from dead men. You have 30 seconds to reconsider before I demonstrate the price of defying the Dragon Empire. The transmission ended. Everyone in the command center looked at each other, knowing that in half a minute, their lives would either continue or end in fire. All stations ready, James called out over the comm system. Remember, we're not trying to win a war. We just need to show them we're not easy prey. The first attack came exactly 30 seconds later. Beams of energy that could slice through battle armor struck the station's outer hull. The lights flickered as the power grid absorbed the massive impact. But Lisa Walsh's modifications held. The mining lasers, repositioned and upgraded, fired back with surprising accuracy. One of the smaller dragon ships took a direct hit to its weapon array and pulled back, trailing glowing plasma. The defenders cheered, but James knew this was just the beginning. They're testing us, he said. The real attack comes next. Zarkhan's voice boomed across all frequencies. Interesting. The prey has claws. But claws will not save you from the storm. The 12 dragon ships spread out and began a coordinated assault. Energy beams struck the station from multiple directions. The hull shook and groaned under the bombardment. Emergency lights flashed in the corridors as damage reports poured in. But the defenders were ready. Tom Bradley's security teams used the station's tight corridors to move quickly between defensive positions. When Dragon boarding pods attached to the hull, the humans were waiting with improvised weapons and knowledge of every tunnel and maintenance shaft. Dr. Richardson worked tirelessly in the medical bay, treating wounded defenders and getting them back to their positions. Granny Peterson's hydroponic gardens had been converted into a supply depot, feeding the fighters and keeping their strength up. The battle raged for 6 hours. The station's hull was scarred and burning in places, but it held together. More importantly, the Dragon fleet was learning that these humans would not break easily. Then something unexpected happened. Velandra, who had been coordinating defensive strategies, suddenly stood up in the command center. Her golden scales blazed with an inner light that James had never seen before. "Enough," she roared, her voice carrying across both the station's comm system and the Dragon fleet's frequencies. "Zarkhan, you coward. You attack innocent people to hide from the truth. Face me directly if you dare." The weapon's fire stopped. Space became eerily quiet. Zarkhan's image appeared on the screen again, but now his expression was uncertain. "Sister cousin, you cannot be serious. Trial by combat? Here? You have no warship, no weapons of honor." "I have something better," Velandra said, looking down at her 3 children and the humans who had risked everything to protect them. "I have family worth fighting for." What happened next would be talked about in taverns across the galaxy for generations. Velandra challenged her cousin to single combat, as was the ancient Dragon way. But instead of fighting alone, she declared James Harper as her heart-brother, a bond that had never existed between Dragon and human before. The combat took place in the space between the station and the fleet. Velandra, wearing ancient battle armor that her mate had given her, faced Zarkhan in his war machine. But she was not alone. The entire station stood behind her, their improvised weapons ready, their voices raised in support. The fight was brief but fierce. Zarkhan was a skilled warrior, but he fought only for power and conquest. Velandra fought for love, for family, for the small being she had sworn to protect. When her cousin fell, defeated but alive, something changed in the Dragon fleet. One by one, the other Dragon ships powered down their weapons. Several captains announced that they were withdrawing from Zarkhan's command and recognizing Velandra as their true queen. In the days that followed, Frontiers Edge became something new. No longer just a simple trading station, it became the first mixed community in known space, where dragons and humans lived and worked together as equals. James still fixed machines and cooked simple meals. But now he did it for a family that included 3 growing dragonlings who called him Uncle James, a dragon queen who valued his friendship above all treasures, and a community of beings from dozens of worlds who had learned that love really was the strongest force in the galaxy. The universe was a big, dangerous place. But it was also full of unexpected friendships and the kind of family that chose to stay together through anything.